Good morning, everyone. Sorry that we're running a little bit behind schedule, and thank you so much for coming out. I know that we're going to have some questions related to other events, so we will be taking some brief question and answer at the end of this, but if there are some specific items that you need to talk about, we'll be making everybody available to you as well. And so to start things off, here is Police Chief Hank Stawinski.
Good morning, everybody. It is my privilege to come to the community today and to talk about the positive developments in the ongoing efforts to prevent crime in Prince George's County, but I would beg your indulgence for a moment as we send our thoughts out to the Pierce County Sheriff's Office that lost a deputy last night in the execution of their duties. Now, I appreciate that. Now, I am very pleased, again, to come to the community and talk about where we are with the year that was 2017. As you know, because we've talked about it and we've been frank with the community all along, crime continues to trend downward in Prince George's County because of the collected efforts of this institution, my predecessor, Chief Mark McGaugh, our sheriff, Melvin and a former chief of this department, our state's attorney, Ms. Alsobrooks, and the leadership of our county executive, Mr. Baker, who took a very different approach to crime in Prince George's County and has allowed a lot of the things that you see happening on the streets of this community to actually take place. I'm going to go briefly into the numbers here, and if you'll indulge me, I brought a stick to point to. This is the beginning of 2010 and Mr. Baker's first year in office. And here, simply stated, we had 103 crimes every day in Prince George's County, Maryland. At the end of the day, on average, at the end of that year. And here's where we've concluded 2017 with, on average, 49 crimes a day. Do the math, it's better than a 50% reduction. Now, again, the community knows that when I have the facts, the community will have the facts. In 2016, we closed the year with, on average, 48. In 2017, we closed the year with 49. We had a slight increase in property crime, and to forestall your questions, there'll be an announcement at the end of this week regarding our efforts in that arena that are now bearing fruit. Importantly, this is aggregate crime. For our community's concerns, you see here in 2010 violent crime per year, and every year since then, you've seen a reduction in violent crime in Prince George's County to include last year's conclusion with a reduction of 6.6%. Importantly, an 18% reduction in homicides. And that's an important number because two things that we need to be cognizant of are the facts of crime versus the fear of crime. I am not going to tell the community, don't fear. I'm going to tell the community the facts, and I'm going to continue to work hard to have the kind of relationships, myself personally, every member of the command staff, but every one of the 1,700 men and women of this institution, so that the community hears from us directly what the facts of crime in Prince George's County are. And the facts are that it's been reduced by more than half, and that that is not an anomaly, that is on purpose. That is the product of good strategy, but that's the product of men and women going out on the streets of Prince George's County, day in, day out, and working to prevent crime from happening in the first place. We no longer seek to just catch the person after they've committed the crime. Our job is to prevent it from happening in the first place. And as a sidebar, I'm going to offer you this blast from the past. This is a graph that was prepared to talk about our progress in 2012, and I think it's timely. I couldn't have planned this any better. But this is 20 years of crime in Prince George's County, going back to 1992, where you see consistently between 40 and 50,000 offenses. And then you see here in 2010 the beginning of this reduction, and you see the end of this. Now it ends in 2012 by coincidence, but right about there at 17,000 is where we are today. So that trend that was begun and spoken about in 2012 has continued to the present day. Again, that's not coincidence. That's hard work by the men and women of this institution. That's the active participation of our community in letting us know where the issues are so that we can be proactive in preventing them. And that's the commitment of every one of my partners up here which is why I'm going to now pause and allow Jen to come back and introduce the next speaker. I'm here for questions, but my thanks to the men and women of this institution, who I'm so proud of, and my thanks to my community.
And Prince George's County Sheriff Melvin. Hi.
Good morning. First, let me congratulate Mr. Baker and all of our team for the continued progress in the fight against crime here in our great county. Under Chief Stawinski's leadership and Chief McGaw's leadership before that, great things have happened on the crime front in Prince George's County. This team has strategized and shared information from the beginning to institute this change. Along with State's Attorney Alsobrooks, I am pleased to have been a partner with the county executive from the start in keeping our neighborhoods safe, and I know the work our deputies have done has furthered that progress. Our strategies have involved education, prevention, and enforcement. The Sheriff's Office works to resolve and prevent domestic violence incidents, the most personal crime imaginable, and to stop those cases from elevating to felony offenses. We care for victims from first contact to get access to resources and to find safe, healthy resolutions to their issues. The presence of our deputies in Police District 3 and around the county serves as a visible reminder that law enforcement is present in our community and on our streets. Our Purple Light Nights gathering and program last year was the largest one yet. More partners, more people, more entities have taken on the fight to bring the incidences of domestic abuse to zero, and that means we're making progress. I'm pleased this battle now involves law enforcement, our social services, our nonprofit organizations, churches, and our citizens working together. We track violent crimes instantly, along with the police department and municipal agencies, and prioritize the arrest of violent offenders. Once we have identified them, to get them off the streets before they offend again. I've spent my entire career collaborating to bring about the best results and knowing we are stronger and more effective together. With federal, state, and local partners, that is how we've approached violent crime in Prince George's County over the last several years. Through these efforts, we closed over 33,000 total warrants in 2017, and we continue to make progress. Providing safe communities, though, is more than just arresting suspects. That's why we are focused on educating our community, especially our seniors, who are often the most susceptible victims to crime and scams. We invest in our youth by assigning some of our deputies to our Positive Day mentoring program. This program provides the resources and empowers our deputies to educate middle school students about life skills that will benefit them all of their lives and help them steer from entering the pipeline to prison. We've kept our focus on domestic violence and have partnered with law enforcement, our courts, government, and nonprofits to support victims, educate our community, and share resources. These continuing commitments are not just a component of this year's reductions in crime. They are part of the changes in Prince George's County that have resulted in continuously safe neighborhoods. As we work to right-size the staffing of the Sheriff's Office, we've made progress too. More deputies secure our courthouse, and we are better able to anticipate and alleviate threats. We've expanded our warrant strategy beyond violent offenders, and we continue to employ innovative techniques to close cases and bring the accused to court so justice can be delivered for the victim and the accused. Strong partnerships, constitutional law enforcement, and sound strategies will continue our successful operations through 2018. Again, I thank the county executive for his partnership and congratulate him on the success he's made in this area and in all of Prince George's County. Our strategies have proven to be sound and successful. We will continue those efforts in 2018 and beyond in public safety. Thank you, and I'll answer questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Sheriff. And now Prince George's County State's Attorney Angela Alsobrooks.
Good morning, everybody. I want to just start this morning by addressing my comments to the press, really, and just saying to you, really, with all humility, thank you so much for coming out this morning and covering this story. And I have to say to you, thank you for how you have covered us over the last 7 years, for being present, for helping us tell the very important stories that we've had to tell. Some of them have broken our hearts, but I really appreciate the accuracy. I appreciate the compassion that you've handled. I have to tell you very honestly, when I started 7 years ago, I wasn't so sure how this relationship would go, and this is true. But I have to tell you that you have been fair. You have always been present. You have helped us so much to extend information to the community, and I'm really very grateful for it. So I want to thank you so much for that. And then I want to say as well how proud I am to be a part of what I have regarded as a Super Bowl team of a public safety apparatus here in the county over the last 7 years. It has been phenomenal. And so I want to say thank you to each of my partners for how amazing they have been to us. These declines that we are reporting this morning are not the efforts of one person. They really are the efforts of a team. And because of that, I believe that we have changed part of the story in Prince George's. When I was elected in 2010, there wasn't a day or a conversation that we had in Prince George's County that didn't start with crime and corruption. I have been so fortunate now to be in rooms all across this county, to be in community centers where the conversation is focused very squarely on education, exactly where it should be. That is not because we have erased crime in Prince George's. Nobody would tell you that that's the case. But instead, I believe that we have been able, through our partnerships, both here with our partners and also with this community, to establish the kind of relationships now where we have earned the trust of the public in the area of public safety. That they don't believe that we are perfect, but they believe that we care. They believe that we are competent, and on any given day, that has been so very important to this community. And the act speaks for itself. The results speak for themselves. And so the story for today is that we have had successive successes every year since we have been here since 2011 and 2010. But even larger than that story really has been that we have decided that it has been more important for us to talk about and to serve the people of Prince George's County than for us to fight each other. We have been on the same team, starting with this county executive who decided that he would fund his priorities very simply, that you cannot have public safety as a priority and refuse to fund it. I lead a state's attorney's office that I inherited where the attorneys and the others in the office were earning nearly 20% lower than every other jurisdiction in Maryland, where we had a staff complement that was wholly inadequate, about 70 lawyers to handle work where the city of Baltimore had nearly 200. And we had 70 plus prosecutors. And so this county executive deserves a lot of credit for coming forward and saying, you tell us what you need and we will provide it. And so we have increased the resources of the state's attorney's office by 40% in the last 6+ years, meaning that our attorneys now, after a salary survey, are on par with every other office in the state of Maryland, and it has made an amazing difference to have the resources that we need, to have the support that we need. And so this county executive, I want to say thank you so very much for really being a partner, a strong partner, for funding the priorities of this county, making the people of this county first, along with the county council, along with our delegation in Annapolis. We really have benefited from those partnerships. sheriffs. I want to say thank you to this sheriff. We have been super lucky to have a sheriff who's been both an elected sheriff and a chief of police whose knowledge and experience have been just so critical to us, but who also has taken on the issue of domestic violence in a very personal way, who helped all of us to understand that it was the collective responsibility of this county to shine a light on domestic violence, from businesses to the faith community to our neighborhoods. I have one of the lights that he's given, the purple light, in my own driveway now, but has taken on as a really personal issue, to really solving the challenges of domestic violence, including men in that conversation in a way that they have never been included before. And so he has done an amazing job there, as well as, I have to tell you, I think we don't understand well what the men and women of the Sheriff's Department do every day when they keep safe the nearly 800,000 people who come to the courthouse. But this is no easy task. My prosecutors stand in dangerous courtrooms with serial killers, with rapists, with other individuals, with gang members, and it has really been this department who made us feel safe at times where we were threatened. They have been there for us, and so I am really grateful as well. And then to this chief of police, who I have to tell you, I just could not say enough about. We are so fortunate in Prince George's County to have the very best there is. A chief of police who has been with me on crime scenes. We have, I believe, shed tears together. And again, we haven't been at these podiums talking about each other's failings. Instead, we have really saved our words to talk about Nashante and Chloe Davis, to talk about the people who have harmed us. We have saved our words for Kanijah Bibbs, and really made sure that we put our efforts together to bring Devon Wallace to justice, who killed Kanijah Bibbs, to get 45 years for him. Maurice Wigfall, who burned his girlfriend alive in a bed, to get a life without parole sentence. And so our departments and agencies have worked together to bring dangerous people to justice. And I could not have really imagined a better partner than Chief Stawinski, who stood with me again at these crime scenes, and who is there for us on an ongoing basis, saying, just tell us whatever you need. So today is a great day in Prince George's, and it has been through the efforts of so many, again, from the faith community who stepped up. We've been able to train over 200 members of ministerial staffs on the issues around domestic violence, where they said the church wouldn't touch these issues. Well, suddenly they have. To the men and women of this community who are our truest heroes, who sit in coffee shops and who sit in their own living rooms, the community leaders and the advocates who are without pay, who all week long discuss these issues and are our partners, who show up for community in the courthouse, and who have been there for us to make sure that we have solved the many of these cases. But we're not done yet. We recognize that crime, today is not mission accomplished. Today is not to say that we have solved the issue of crime, but that we have solved the issue of partnerships, that we have learned to work together collaboratively. And again, when it is more on our mouths, how do we serve people, than to have the politics interfere with our productive and professional relationships. I think that we have accomplished quite a lot. So again, thank you all for being here, for the coverage that you have certainly given us over the last 7 years that helped us to tell our story. And to the people of Prince George's County, we are not done yet. We are on the mission, and we thank them so much for believing in us, trusting us, and for working with us to build the community that we deserve. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And without further ado, County Executive Rushern Baker.
Thank you. Wow. First and foremost, I do want to, thank our partners. Certainly our state's attorney, as she has just eloquently surmised what's gone on in Prince George's County over these last 7 years. She is absolutely right. This would not take place had it not been for the willingness, quite honestly, of 2 elected officials who are elected countywide, just like I am, to be willing to come in at a time when we faced a crisis in 2011 when homicides were actually going up with a brand new county executive. And they came in, checked their egos at the door, as I had to, along with our public safety apparatus of the county, and we got to work. You think about it, if you think back to 2010, we had a meeting every Monday, every single Monday for 6 months. Not talking about how we were going to solve the crimes that had taken place, not talking about how we were going to prosecute the crimes that had taken place. We're not talking about the warrants that were served, but how do we prevent it from happening in the first place? If it wasn't for Angela Alsobrooks in the state's attorney's office and Melvin High in the sheriff's office working with us, we would not be standing here today. Because their conversation were about issues that, if you look at their charter and what they're assigned to do, did not include those. It didn't include Angela working with our school system and working with domestic violence. It didn't include the sheriff working with our school system, domestic violence, family services, social services. But what they understood and what we understood is that in a time of crisis, as Teddy Roosevelt liked to say, the best thing to do is the right thing. The second best thing to do is the wrong thing. The worst thing to do is nothing. And I think that summed up how we approach government and how we approach crime. And that is to do something, to come together in ways that we could figure out how do we set Prince George's County on a path, not for the next election for us, but for the next decade. How do we bring in, and it started with Chief McGall and it's continued under Chief Stawinski, how do we make sure that what you see today is not an anomaly? This is 7 years of work that's going to continue into 2018. And I am pleased as I go around the state these days talking about how we did it in Prince George's County. I felt comfortable and the county council felt comfortable increasing the staffs of the state's attorney's office and the sheriff's department and our public safety, both the corrections office, the sheriff's department, and our fire department and our homeland security, because we had leadership there. We had individuals that understood that they were committed to it. And so I'd like at this time to give both Sheriff High and our state's attorney a round of applause for their great work. So it's a bit emotional for me because this is my last, time doing this as the county executive. And I think that when you start to get near the end of your time, and you get older like I am, you start to just think back, not to today. Like I said, you start thinking back to what it was like when you came in and how scared we were and how we didn't know what the future was going to hold. And then you fast forward to the things that we've done, not just today. Today is really about the continuation and the process. But you start thinking about, as you get older, what's going to be left behind. Because quite honestly, if we make the changes that the state's attorneys talked about and the sheriffs talked about, and it's just about the three of us working together and the sheriff and the chief working together, then it's all for naught. Because we're not here for each other. We're here for the men and women who have helped us in the community with those coffee shops, with our Transforming Neighborhoods initiative, where people have taken their lives and their community back. And I can't help but just think about the fact that we would not have stood at a groundbreaking at Suitland, Maryland, where we're going to see one of the biggest projects developed, had it not been for their work. No one was willing to invest as long as they thought crime was an issue in the county. But they're willing to take a chance because they've seen the work of these men and women and the men and women of our police, sheriff, and corrections over these years. We wouldn't have downtown Largo. We wouldn't have a brand new hotel at College Park. All of those are interrelated to the work that has happened here. And so as I, leave the stage as county executive, the one thing I think my wife and I are really, pleased about is that we know there are going to be men and women in our police department, in our sheriff's department, in our state's attorney's office, and in our corrections department and Homeland Security that are going to carry on this great work that they've started. We're also pleased that I have a feeling that two of the people who are standing up here today will be standing here next year talking about the work that we have started and continuing that. And so as a resident of Prince George's County, I'm pleased that both Angela and Melvin will be in roles that will continue to move us forward. So today is about thanking you, the public, for working with us. And let me just end with this. I think Angela said something that's appropriate. You know, like her, I had, a little mixed reaction about the media, and whether, in fact, the coverage of Prince George's County would be what we wanted it to be. And I think we have all been pleasantly surprised that it has been both fair and balanced, to use that word, that it has been enlightening for us, because we have never said that Prince George's County was perfect. Just like today, we don't say that we have solved the crime issue in Prince George's County. Because in order to truly solve and to get further along with solving crime and education problems, it means that we have to look at our community as a whole and make sure that they're better. But I want to thank the media for the coverage that you have done and for being here for us. With that, God bless you, and thank you, citizens of Prince George's County.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for some question and answers. Anybody have a question?
Chief, is there anything you can point to in terms of the reduction in violent crime and more specifically in the reduction in homicides? And when you look at the homicide numbers, are we still looking at a large number of domestic related and if children being killed, do they still account for too large of a percentage of that number?
Obviously, any death in that arena is a tragedy, and we're never satisfied. The results that you see here are a product of the fact that the people standing here are never satisfied. I will attribute this violent crime reduction to a couple of different things. Number one, it's not something we did in 2017 particularly, but we set out to take a different approach to the strategic allocation of resources several years ago. This is the continuing evolution of a different strategy in policing that incorporates property crime, violent crime, and fatal collisions, but also speaks about our role in the criminal justice system in preparing a good case for prosecution, our collaboration with the sheriff's office to take people who have warrants out of the game and to make certain that every day, and we run this department in real time, I've talked about that before, every morning at 9 o'clock, every afternoon at 2 o'clock, and all through the night, leadership is constantly monitoring, constantly adjusting these resources. And so by creating structures that police this county as it exists in 2018 now, as opposed to how it existed years ago, by having daily, weekly conversations amongst the public safety team, by having the unwavering support of this executive and this council to supply the resources that we all need, we've been able to make a substantive change. And that's why I alluded to my remarks at the beginning of this with respect to Mr. Baker taking a different approach. But I also want to point out something else. Yesterday, we were spending time with our families. It's Sunday, and two of our detectives, Manoir and Curry, are at a Pizza Hut in Lanham, following up on a robbery that occurred 2 days before Christmas. And they locked up 3 people getting ready to do the same thing all over again. At the end of the day, those 2 detectives, the 1,700 men and women who are out there with them every day, and people like that deputy we lost in Pierce County, they're the ones who are doing this work on our behalf. They're the ones who deserve the credit, and I thank my community, and again, I encourage them when they see one of these officers, one of these deputies, one of these troopers, or one of these agents, say thank you.
Any questions?
Chief, I want to follow up on that. Technology has changed so much. A lot of these crimes are being solved now because you have cameras all over the place. You have computers in cars and whatnot. How has that helped you in driving down crime, technology?
We've leveraged all these resources. Gordon Johnson, FBI, Baltimore, Danny Board, ATF, Baltimore, Carl Calder, DEA, Baltimore. Those are individuals who I talk with again daily and weekly. Using technology, and we've just transitioned, it's hard to believe that this agency was operating largely on paper 3 years ago. Now we've made that transition. It was a difficult year in 2017. I want to thank Bill Palazzi, the state police, as we've made that transition. But now we have access to what we need to thrive under our strategic platform, which is granular data. All of this is a product of data and real-time analysis and real-time movement. So yes, computers and cameras, they do assist us, but I will say the same thing with respect to the crime-fighting aspect of that as I will say with respect to body cameras. They won't tell the whole story. Detectives Munwar and Curry were out there on the street doing the job. It wasn't, hey, I got a video, hey, I get a warrant, hey, I lock somebody up. They were out there, they put hands on criminals getting ready to rob people, potentially hurt people, and at the end of the day, all of those things matter, but our strategic platform incorporates technology as well as on-the-street resources, as well as the critical part that can't be overlooked, community outreach. We're not where we are today in the aggregate without the overwhelming support of the community in Prince George's County and their faith in us. And as the county executive said, I believe that the community does not insist that we be perfect. I believe, based on my conversations with them, and they are daily, they expect us to know what's going on and do something about it. And this is doing something about it.
Okay, if you have any other questions, you can speak with our speakers
Any of us.
individually. Any of them?
Can we ask Ms. Alsobrooks a question?
Sure. Yep.
Basically, sort of going off what I just asked the chief, have you seen an increase in not only the quality of the cases that you're getting in your office, but how technology has helped you in getting stronger cases into your office? And have you seen an increase in the number of, let's just say, homicide cases that you've gotten that are strong enough to go to juries and have not been dropped? And do you know the number of cases where that have had to, or let me ask it this way, have you seen an increase in the number of cases you've been able to take to juries in the last 7 years because of the quality of work and the technology that you have to make these cases stronger?
Oh, absolutely. We have over a 90% conviction rate in homicide cases, for example. And part of that is the cases have become stronger and stronger. Technology has been very helpful. The use of cell phone records, for example, the video technology that you're talking about. So digital media has been very helpful to us. And so we have found that the quality of the cases has definitely increased over the years and has allowed us to have more and more convictions. We're solving cold cases, for example, at a rate that caused us to have to hire a cold case prosecutor to work alongside the police department's own creation of a cold case unit, which we think has been marvelous to finally bring closure to some of the families who had no answers for years and years. But we are now almost unable to keep up with the number of cold cases that this department has been solving and that our prosecutors are working on. And so we've been able to see through DNA and we've just seen marvelous increases really in advances in technology that have been so helpful to us in solving the cases. Now, the other part of that, and I appreciate the question because I was thinking as you were asking it, is, you know what? It wouldn't make any difference if we didn't have the right relationships with our community, because there was a time that I remember not too long ago that we put up cases that we thought were rock solid cases. We could have video, we could have witnesses, we had everything and got not guilty because the community didn't trust us. So one of the things that we've had to do, and the smartest thing that's ever happened over the last 7 years, is that all of us are present. We are a present part of this community. People know us. They don't know tell of us. They know us. And that has been so important to earn the trust of the community, to show up at churches and mosques, and to show up at schools and every place where we find folks at barbecues, because guess what? No matter how strong the case, it was so frustrating to us, especially with drug cases. It didn't matter. We could have strong testimony and, like I said, a video of an individual committing a crime and have the jury say not guilty if they don't trust your word. And so the best thing that has happened over the last 7 years has not just been technology, but that we have developed really strong relationships with our community so that when they get in that jury box and we put up evidence and we have to put up police witnesses and others who come before them, they have to be able to trust our word and to trust the evidence that we're presenting. And I think that has made all the difference.
Thank you. Jim, is it something you want to do off?
No,
Angela?
I spoke to you, I asked you this question before. I believe there were like 80 homicides this year. It seemed like a majority of the victims have been arrested in the past for numerous crimes. Is there a correlation between them being arrested and them being a homicide victim?
Well, you know what? That's a great observation as well. I don't have all the numbers for this past year about the numbers of repeat offenders for the numbers we're talking about, the 80. We haven't analyzed all of those yet, but you make a great point, something we noticed many years ago. Today's perpetrators are tomorrow's victims. It is a very powerful correlation that we've been able to see, and so the reason that we have been so adamant, not just in responding to crime, but trying to make sure that we're preventing it through our Back on Track program. We have the Teen Court program. We have been so aggressive in doing what we could to penetrate many of our youth communities through partnerships with the United Way. We've done sisterhood summits and brotherhood summits because we have discovered that if we don't reach people, they are perpetrators on one day and they are our victims on the next. It's the same group of people. Now, we have done great work in terms of violent repeat offenders. We started in our office the Strategic Investigations Unit through a grant that we got from the state government. We now have $3 million additional dollars coming in to help us to fight violent repeat offenders that we think has been very effective for us. But you're absolutely right. Today's perpetrator, tomorrow's victim. And so it is a cycle that we have got to continue to focus on and make sure that we're breaking.
Chief can add to that.
Extraordinarily briefly, we conduct an in-depth analysis of every single crime. And when I was privileged to take over the operations in patrol, hard to believe, going on 5 years ago now, the first question I always ask is, who is our victim? And now, when I show up, everybody already has that information. That's just a portion of our constant analysis with respect to these things. But again, that's not for nothing. And there's a book upstairs that Ms. Alsobrooks and I have referred to several times, talking about how do we make a difference in terms of making our strategies, and not just the policing strategy, but the prosecution strategy, remove people from our community who are posing a threat and have demonstrated that as a practice. And there's a different approach to that as there is to the person who commits a single crime or perhaps makes a mistake in their life. So that is a constant part of what we do, and we have analysis going back several years, and we have those conversations. Again, for the community's sake, we have those conversations at least weekly, if not daily.
A lot of these victims that were victims that were suspects in the cases have extensive records arrested numerous times.
I'm well aware of this. But again, what Ms. Alsobrooks spoke to was the methods by which we have developed and become more sophisticated as a policing agency and as a prosecutorial body. And that's allowed us to make a difference in people's lives with respect to holding people accountable. I'm not casting aspersions. I'm just saying that as we enter 2018, we are better prepared now than we've ever been to tackle those issues. And that's part of our daily analysis to make certain that we aren't overlooking anything in our efforts to what? Prevent crime. We don't catch people once they commit the crime. Our whole goal is prevention oriented. That's the key.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, everyone. I know there were a couple requests about the DeHaven situation. We have Deputy Chief Patel and the Chief can speak with you. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And again, Happy New Year from
Thanks, everybody.
PGPD.